Morning. Welcome to today's video log. My name is Adam. And if you're watching for the first time, oh, hello, we're slipping. We're slipping. Man, I'm trying to hold this up with a pig. if you're coming in, oh, I have to hold this, bloody hell. Bloody pigs. If you're coming in for the first time, subscribe to my channel. You get all my videos. I do a vlog every single day, and I release videos sort of like twice, 3 times a week. And you make that bell ring, and you'll get notified when I go live, and we can have a chat. So let's chat today. Right now, I'll do spoilers at the end, towards the end. I'll flash spoiler alert so people can look away, because I know a lot of people wouldn't have seen it because it hasn't actually been released yet. Previews for the UK went out yesterday, and I had the opportunity to see it like Monday, I think it was, but I didn't. I waited until the missus and I could go, and we went to go see the new Terminator Dark Fate, right? And it's a film worth watching. If you're a Terminator fan, definitely you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna love it. It's a good one. Okay, it's not Genesis or Genocide or whatever you want to call it. Oh man, I burnt my toast. It's nothing like that. Let me see here. I'm gonna try and put this somewhere now, so where I gotta make some sort of tripod thing here. Is that gonna work? That ain't gonna work. That's still too hot. Let's see here. Let's see what we can do here. There we go. Put that on there. Put you on there. There we go. Now we're cooking. That's gonna be cooking. Sitting on the toaster. Right, so yeah. Man, toasters are too much done. Yeah, it's a good one. It's probably on the par with, and this is no spoiler for anything, but it's probably on par with Salvation, I would say. You know, it's about as good as Salvation in terms of action, and it's got loads of action in it. Real good action, not like, crappy action, but really good action. It's got good humor in it. It's got what you expect from the cast that is there, okay? So I definitely would recommend go watch it. Definitely recommend go watch it. If you're a fan of Terminator, if you like the series of films, even if you didn't like Genesis, which I know a lot of people didn't, and to be honest, Genocide, whatever you want to say it, was a little bit like, All right, there we go. It was like, it was just too far-fetched. Like, I'm not far-fetched, but it was just like, the first 20 minutes were actually good, and then the premise, forget it. Now, this isn't a spoiler, but I will say, if you take the story of Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation, and Terminator Genesis, Rise of the Machines, Salvation, and Genesis, basically, this is what Dark Fate is. Like, it's a mixture of all them 3 films, and this is now the 3rd film. This replaces those 3 films, and it does a better job of them 3 films effectively covering the same story. It's a good film. Go watch it. Okay, so spoilers now. This is it now. Spoiler territory. I'm going to tell you what I think as well at the end. Okay, so if you haven't seen the film, just go straight to the end of the video, okay? And you'll hear, my review of what I actually, think of the film in terms of. But okay, so I tell you, the film starts off really, really good. Film starts off with Sarah Connor, young Sarah Connor, the footage from T2 when she's in the hospital going, and they fall apart like leaves, and she's talking to the doctor, and it sort of intercuts that with the logos, and then a couple of images of like a possible future or whatever. And it's like, ooh, yeah. And then get that music kicking in, and you're like, this is Terminator now. And then it cuts in with the most awesome scene. This is the best scene in the entire film, and they give it to you like straight after it. It's basically, you see Sarah Connor literally from Terminator 2, like Linda Hamilton de-aged down, and she's like, I don't know if she's in the Bahamas or Caribbean or what, like she's in this some sort of like Ibiza-esque location, right? And she's like the machines, and all this, right? And she's like, I think she's got her classic vest on, I think. But she sat there and she's enjoying the sunshine, and and like, my son and I stopped Judgment Day, and then you look straight ahead and it's John Connor from that, like literally. I mean, this scene is most likely like a year after the events of Terminator 2 or something like that. John Connor's still a kid, and it's like, and it's really good de-aging stuff as well. It's really good, CGI, and it's like, oh my god, it's John Connor, and he's having a drink at the bar or something like that, or getting the drinks, and then all of a sudden you see Arnie step into frame, and it's like, it's not Arnie from Terminator 2. It's not exactly. It's like, it is Arnie though. It is Arnie from that time of his life, but he looks kind of, his haircut is slightly different, and he suddenly comes in, pulls out a gun, boom, blows John Connor away, and you're like, what just happened here? Did they just kill off John Connor in the first 5 minutes of the film? Did they just, like, what? And you're kind of in shock, because it's like, you were so looking at the marvel of, seeing your characters that you'd seen in Terminator 2, and then suddenly Arnie comes in and blows somebody away, and she tries to stop him, and he smacks her down, and it's like, oh, right, okay. And then the film continues on, right? And I think it comes up to present day. This is something like 22 years later. And it's like, did that actually happen, or was that a dream sequence? And you really don't know. If, like, for me, I was left wondering, is this a dream? Is this a nightmare vision? Which I think would have been pretty cool if it was. Or did it actually happen? I'm not going to spoil which one it was, okay? So just enjoy the moment. Anyway, so we'll get into, at the end of this, even deeper spoilers, and I'll tell you what I thought, okay? But then the film carries on, and it's really fine, and then we introduce, kind of like in Genesis, on the freeway, and bodies fall from the sky out of the time travel thing, and it's like a female, and then so another location, a male drops down, and you're like, oh, what's going on here? And it gets straight into it. It's at a quicker pace than it was in the first Terminator, when they came from the future. Even, in Terminator 2, it seemed to have its own pacing, for it. But this one is a bit more accelerated, and you're introduced then to the new Terminator, and you're introduced to the hero, which for me basically is like that Marcus character from Terminator Salvation, enhanced human. I mean, they basically picked out story beats from Terminator 3, Terminator 4, Terminator 5, and wove it together in what feels like a Terminator 2.5 in the terms of how the story progresses, and it is enjoyable. You will enjoy it, right? But there is a couple of moments in the action which is like, we're getting into a bit of that physically is like, can't happen because the laws of gravity won't allow it. And it explains old Arnie much better than it did in Genesis. It explains. It's got a really great moment between Arnie and Linda Hamilton, and you're like, these are the original characters of Terminator 2. Do you know what I mean? This is like brilliant. It explains that, but the downfall for me, I think, is, okay, so the story was done by James Cameron, Tim Miller, and some dude, David, I think. That's three people hands-on to the story. Now, Okay, so going into deeper spoilers now, guys. Okay, so this is gonna really ruin the film for you. They ruined the film in the first 5 minutes when they killed John Connor, and they did kill John Connor, right? They completely ruined the entire rest of the film and franchise because um, they killed John Connor. They killed John Connor, which means Terminator 1 can never happen now, right? And I had this conversation with a guy when I came out of the cinema, and he goes, no, 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 man. It's like, okay, so they stopped Judgment Day, in Terminator 2, so it never happened now then. They're now free to go off and live off their own. This is now a new, sort of thing. Okay, it's a new threat coming in. And I says, like, yeah, but dude, right, it's no. By killing John Connor, he does not grow up to be the man he is in in his time, right? Therefore, he's never able to send back Kyle Reese, who impregnates his mom with him, right? Which means he's never born, which means that Terminator never came back in the first film, which that Terminator is how Skynet gets built, okay? And even if it didn't happen then and it happened in the future anyway, it did happen in the original instance, right? And Judgment Day will always have to happen for a Terminator to come back from the future. Judgment Day has to have happened at some point. They may have just delayed the time that it happens, but it has to happen in order for a Terminator not only to come back from the future, but for Terminator 1 to even exist, Terminator 1 would not exist if they prevented Judgment Day. It's like, well, you wouldn't have the first film, the second film, if you prevent it. You can only delay it. You can never prevent it. You can only delay it. So they only delayed Judgment Day, and then it got called something else, and the Terminators weren't called Terminators, they were called Legions or Legionnaires or something like that. But seriously, it's like by killing John Connor, it completely removes the first Terminator film because he didn't send his dad back into the past. His dad didn't do the dirty with his mom, and then he wasn't born, right? And plus, the Terminator wasn't discovered in the factory, which that's the company that goes on to create the AI, which eventually becomes Skynet, which then takes over the world and sends off the robots and kills mankind. And then, John Connor is like, I know how to kill these dudes. And then meets up with a dude and sends him back, knowing it's going to make him by sending him back. You kill John Connor before he reaches that manhood stage, you've just ruined the entire franchise, and now you've still got the rest of the film to get to sit through. That, for me, completely ruined the whole franchise by just killing off John Connor. Now, I bet you any money the director's got a question, like a reaction for that. Yeah, okay, so his timeline of events, right? But now it branches off when they prevented Judgment Day. We've got these new events and it's new future, and the female, one of the female characters in this film is kind of like a John Connor of the future. That's the whole, and to be honest, that is the weakest element of this film. Is the reason why they have to send the good Terminator back, for me, wasn't to protect that girl, okay? It was to make that girl, which was like, they really focused on, like, you've sent me back to create you of who you will become. And by the way, there's a Terminator after us as well. And it's like, well, that doesn't really work, mate, in my opinion. And it was like, it should be that the good person is sent back to defend the innocent against the Terminator, not to help that person become the person that they are. I mean, it for me, I know it sounds okay when you say it, right? But it doesn't work because initially, what you don't need, it's like, okay, you could have done that at any point in the future. You could have sent her back to help her create the person she needs to be without having a Terminator after you. It's like, I don't know. It was, for me. That was just a little bit of a weak one. I did enjoy the film. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed the ride of the film. It was brilliant. The action scenes are a lot better, and it's still got loads of story beats of all Terminator films. There's so many Easter eggs in there for all the Terminator films, and the sequence on the airplane was like, oh my gosh, Tim Miller knows how to direct action, you know. But unfortunately, I mean, the thing is with Terminator is James Cameron really created a paradox of films when he, when you send something from the future and it's that somebody that instigates everything, right? Which is what if they wanted to prevent the machines taking over, right? They would have killed Kyle Reese when he came back. The humans would have gone nail that fucker quick because if he dies, there is no future, Um, but yeah, it's a franchise of films where you've got to walk a thin line because of the paradox of everything, and then they just completely forgot about that. I think in the first, I think they were like, you know what is the big deal with this John Connor kid? Like, why is everybody, oh, John Connor? Remove John Connor and that's it, done. I almost thought they were going to remove, like, kill off Linda Hamilton's character as well. She is as ripped as you want her to be. She is as badass as you want her to be. But I did not like the way they made her crazy type of thing. Like they really undermined her character a lot in that film, and made her come across like a crazy old lady. And that kind of just takes the edge off of her badassness. But yeah, there's moments where you're like, yes, and there's moments where you're like, oh my gosh, how, like, this actress is doing this for real, and it's like, hats off to her, man. She's, trooper. And I say Arnie's cover for, because obviously, okay, so the reason they've explained the aging thing, they've explained that, the Terminator that went back in time to kill John Connor, basically, mission done. I don't need to do anything now. I've done my mission. I've got nothing to do. I'll just live. Instead of just, killing himself, which he can't do, he just goes off and lives, and he interacts with humans, and he wants to understand humans more by interacting with them. So he shacks up with some girl and a kid, and he plays Happy Families, and they call him Carl, and he's a drapes salesman. And there's a moment in the film when Arnie's going, yeah, and I told him not to go with the red, and it's like, do it this way, and it's like, that's a Terminator talking. You know what I mean? That's a Terminator hugging that lady, going, I love you and I'll miss you, and it's like, that's a Terminator, right? But he's learning and he's evolved, and obviously he's aged now. Okay, so that's canon now. Okay, so this film is canon and removes the other three films as canon. This replaces them. Now the aging thing. Okay, so obviously, in the first two films, it sets up that Terminators have skin, actual skin, real hair, bad breath. You will, BO, you will not be able to tell the difference. And then, of course, now it's like, and that skin can grow old. It's not going to stay, young forever. Okay, so the skin's going to grow old. Now, I know I've seen what like 110-year-old person looks like, and I've seen what their skin looks like as well. So there will be a point when that skin will just completely break down on this Terminator, right? And just literally fall off. Like, literally start to peel off and die completely, right? And I think, obviously it's not canon now, but in the Terminator of the pasts, we have learned that their cell, energy cell, can go on for hundreds of years, which means eventually there's going to come a time when the skin and the hair completely drops off the Terminator, and then it's the endoskeleton walking around. And for me, I was just like, looking at Arnie, and okay, he looks a lot different than he did when he was younger. But in this sort of film, like, there's going to be a point where that Terminator in the future is just going to start, and that made me chuckle. I mean, he doesn't get to do that, and he does. There is a line. I mean, I was thinking, there's not many catchphrases in this film. There's not many moments. There's a moment when he goes, "I won't be back." That's not going to take off. That's not going to become the "I'll be back" and "I won't be back." That. But that was a sad moment, actually, because it's like, it's Arnie going, dudes, this is my last one. Okay, I will not return for another Terminator. Is that I won't be back. That moment made me almost cry, because I was like, this is the end of an era. Arnie, at the end of the day, created that whole. I know James Cameron wrote the film, but he wrote the original Terminator to be more slender. He wrote the first Terminator film was written at like the T1000. Really, he wanted a liquid metal, thin, person who blends into society, not a massive bodybuilding hunk that stands out in society. But of course, it didn't work out that way. Like Arnie, came in, nailed the performance, and really nailed the mannerisms and I mean that voice of Arnie's stands out in society as an infiltrator. That's not a wise choice of accent to have. Yeah, I do remember that big, massive dude with the foreign accent. Yeah, he's over there. Yeah, because he stands out. Do you know what I mean? That's not a good infiltrator, is it? So, but he made it and created that role, and like I can't imagine anybody else doing it, And the fact that Arnie's aren't going to be doing any more films, I think, for the Terminator franchise, if they do go on to make more, it's kind of sad, It's kind of like, well, I enjoyed that ride, you know. Um, and the other girl in it, I thought would be maybe she's like a clone of Sarah Connor. Maybe they've taken the DNA of Sarah Connor and created this female, and then kind of, I knew she had like mesh in her skin, and I was like, I wonder if that she's gonna be in it, but forget it. It's not. No, it's not that interesting. She's just literally someone from the future who is a badass in real life, and or in the Terminator life, right? Her character is a badass who, and then they RoboCop her basically, and they go, yeah, you're gonna be the one to be sent back, she's literally nobody special. She's Rey, as far as we know, from Star Wars. No one special. It's just the person who the main character or the main instigator of the film saves in the future, and then they buddy up, and then she goes, you know what? I'm going to send you back to help me in the past, which completely doesn't work as a laws of physics, or do you know what I mean? No, because there's got to be a point I mean, yeah, it just doesn't work. Anyway, so there we go. 20 minutes long. This vlog is way too long. I'm cutting it here, guys. Terminator spoiled, right? You'll enjoy it. Go watch it. It's better than Genesis. It's about as equal. And in terms of look and feel as well, it's about as equal. And the timeline, by the way. I was watching that film going, right, okay, so this is set in present day Earth, right? And the look of the planet Earth here, it's kind of like what it did in Salvation, But I was working out, okay, so if the event, okay, if in the future, when we saw the future, okay, and we saw Kyle Reese, it was 2029, right? If that still holds true, which I don't think it does, because everything would be delayed, so it would be more like 2039 or something. That means Kyle Reese in this film, if he was ever shown, he would be like 18 or 19 in that film, okay? That's how old he would in order to be sent back in the first Terminator at the age he was from 2029. I just thought that's 18 or 19, man. That would be an interesting little... I almost thought as well that I thought that the main character, the Mexican girl in this, who grows up to be a badass like John Connor, basically, of the future, I almost thought she would be Kyle Reese's mom. I thought that would be really interesting because that would really validate, the reason why to save her now. Because it's like they tried to kill, John Connor. Like, they tried to kill his mom before he was even born, okay, which would have actually ended the actual Terminator war. They would have lost completely. Then they tried to kill John Connor. Right? Didn't work. Okay, now we're going to try and kill John Connor's dad or mom. And it's like, that would have been more interesting. I don't know how they would have known who she was, though, but I thought if she was going to grow up and then give birth to Kyle Reese in the future, that would have been super interesting, right? And I think it would have been better if her character, forget what I've just said now. At the end of the film, I was really hoping she would be John Connor. Because there's moments in it where Linda Hamilton goes, "You've messed with my family." And it's like, it would have been really cool if John Connor was this Mexican girl instead. And it was his character who the Terminator was after again. And it's like, okay, it would be kind of rehashing Terminator 2 plot. but it really would have brought it back at the end of the film. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say now. That's done and dusted. I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Thanks for watching. If you watched it this far, hats off to you guys. And if you did watch it this far, put the code word butter in the comments below, please. And I'll see everyone later. Bye.